adventurers. It's Dozing Knight. Welcome back to another quiet evening of shared tales and wandering through worlds unknown. Here, beneath a canopy of imagined stars, we embrace the tranquility of nightfall and allow our minds to drift gently with the call of distant lands and forgotten times. Today, we embark on a journey through the corridors of history's unseen alleys. Our tale is shrouded in mystery, sewn into the tapestries of ancient cities, and whispered through the voices of the wind. This is the night when shadows reveal their secrets. A night alight with the legacy you'll uncover in an Assassin's Creed sleep story. Those who roam the twilight borders of legend will guide you amidst the hidden destinies of noble assassins. Within the quietude of moonlit market squares and the rustle of aged parchments, we delve into the legacy of shadow. As darkness settles, your imagination can whisk you away to bustling towns and silent halls, tracing the delicate dance of light and shade. Feel the echo of footsteps on cobblestone streets, and sense the gravity of secrets that bide their time behind thick walls. Our protagonist tonight might be just around the corner, lurking in the flicker between lamplight and dusk. Before we dive deeper, I invite you, dear listeners, to share your thoughts. Imagine for a moment, if you could hold the memories of another life, what path would you choose to walk and why? Would you wander with the wisdom of centuries, or weave new pathways beyond the unseen thresholds of history? Let your thoughts linger on this, a gentle venture into the realms of possibility and wonder. If these surreal evenings bring you comfort, we invite you to subscribe to our series. A simple click ensures you're always a heartbeat away from the next adventure. Let us continue to wend our way through the tranquil passages of endless stories together. Now let us ease into this journey with a moment of relaxation. Take a deep breath and hold it softly, imagining each inhalation filling you with a serene light. Upon your exhale, feel any tension melt away, leaving only stillness in its wake. As you breathe in once more, picture yourself standing amidst the ghosts of ages past, your feet firmly planted on the path woven by the forebears of intrigue and mystery. With each subsequent breath, your surroundings fade away, and in their place emerges the soothing silhouette of tomorrow's world waiting beyond the horizon. Allow this quiet to lead you forward, each rhythmic breath a key unlocking the gates to Constantinople, Venice, or Cairo, where our story tonight might unfold. We are but whispers on the edge of history, and the journey into the legacy of shadow begins now, within the safety of this shared dreamscape. Prepare yourself, adventurer, as we step beyond what is known into the heart of the tale that lies ahead. The old city seemed to breathe in harmony with the night. Firenze, wrapped in a gossamer layer of mist, shimmered beneath the crescent moon. Each slumbering rooftop wore its tile cap askew, leaning into one another for warmth against the crisp air. In alleyways, shadows curled like sleeping cats. Beyond the grand facade of the Duomo, the world softened. Gentle lamplight spilled over cobblestones, caressing worn stones with a golden touch. Elio spun along the rooftop's edge, his boots landing soundless upon ancient brick. The city's symphony, a distant lute, a church bell's final chime, rose up, mingling with the fragrance of olive oil and rosemary drifting from the open window of a bakery 2 streets away. He paused, breath deepening, eyes tracing lines of midnight blue rooftops. Generations had walked this city after dark. Watchmen, poets, merchants, and sometimes assassins. In that quiet hour, Elio's heart beat slower, matching the pulse of Florence itself. His tunic rustled softly when he knelt by a marble ledge. Palm resting against the cold stone, he felt a sense of continuity, the fabric of the city and his family's legacy interwoven. The Medici banners hung silent above the piazza, their colors muted in the moonlight. No pursuit, no target tonight. Only the silent comfort of walking his ancestors' paths. An unseen guardian in the folding shadows. Warmth burned gentle in his chest when he thought of his grandmother's tales. How his great-grandfather saw the city lit by torch rather than lamp. How he vanished as quickly as he came, a wraith among men, yet always returned home. Elio listened to the faint hum of the river Arno in the valley below, carrying stories from the hills, winding timelessly under stone bridges. He breathed in, then out, deliberately. Each inhalation carried notes of lavender and night-blooming jasmine, growing wild on the city's outskirt gardens. The air settled, growing heavier with anticipation, draping Firenze in its perfumed embrace. Elio's thoughts drifted, drawn far from the pressing needs of his clandestine order. From his perch, the palazzo's clock tower stood silent, its timekeeping unnecessary at an hour when the city dreamt. His gaze fell to the square below, empty save for a lone cat gliding gracefully along a canal's wall. In the heart of the night, the world seemed almost weightless. Elio's hand brushed the paper rectangle folded in his pocket. A letter from a mentor, words of an older world, speaking within the hush. He rose, stretching quietly, taking in the cityscape. The domes and steeples, the line of hills at the eastern edge. Florence's architecture steeped in memory and quiet perseverance. Sleepy breaths of wind, cool and light, rippled across his collar, drawing out a faint sigh. No mission, only inheritance. Not intrigue, but presence. Through the scent of yeast and fresh loaves threading the silence, Elio felt grounded, feet anchored, head cleared. Tonight, tucked into the secret lanes and open piazzas, he would walk as one more story written among thousands. A figure outlined by moonlight, at peace with uncertain tomorrows. As he eased down a slanted roof and let himself drop into the embrace of shadow, Florence's lullaby enfolded him, timeless and unhurried. The city was an open book, and he, Elio, was but a word upon its pages, guided forward by the gentle hand of night. Cypress trees towered in the heart of the old quarter, their black sentinel forms nodding slightly in the dawn's earliest murmur. The gentle hush before morning cultivated a rare tranquility in the winding alleys. A courtyard, half lost behind an iron gate tufted with vines, beckoned to Elio. Passing beneath a low archway, he admired the mosaic floor, terracotta and onyx, worn smooth by centuries of quiet passage. A marble basin in the center of the courtyard collected the downpour from last night, the surface so still it reflected the world above with dreamy fidelity. A blue shadow slid over the water as a high cloud crossed the moon. Elio crouched, running his fingers along the rim, tracing lines carved by artists whose names had been lost to time. The air felt thick with memory. The silence seemed woven with old laughter and secretive meetings. He pulled his hood slightly forward, savoring the gentle pressure against the back of his neck. This was a place to breathe slowly, to settle one's hurried pulse. The scent of basil and fig hung thick, drifting over from a neighbor's neglected potter. Beyond the moss-freckled cobbles, a slumbering dog nestled in a patch of rosemary, twitching in dreams of distant fields. The columned walls, faded with time and weather, told stories in quiet whispers. Elio could see the blurred outlines where countless hands had rested, where lanterns had swung during midnight conspiracies. He closed his eyes, feeling his ancestors' presence. These stones held the secrets of the Order, pledges sealed with a glance, friendships forged in silent understanding. Birdsong fluttered softly, tentative and hesitant, as if the sparrows themselves respected the courtyard's hush. At the far edge, a narrow staircase spiraled upward, vanishing into the overhanging branches. Elio climbed, step after deliberate step, the rhythm of ascent steadying his nerves. Each stair seemed laid by individual hands, the shifting heights a puzzle, the uneven surface a gentle test of balance. From above, the city's roofs crest the horizon, with their sharp triangular shapes softened in the muted starlight. Elio paused, looking out from his vantage among the leaves. The hush of the courtyard, its gentle pulse and soft light, followed him up, as comforting as the warm embrace of a childhood blanket. A single lamplighter moved through the adjacent street, his pole lifted high, flame licking at the glass lanterns one by one, each burst a bloom of slow gold radiance. The lamps cast elongated silhouettes, painting gentle ripples along the paving stones, weaving a dreamscape that melted into the coming dawn. Below, the courtyard's fountain echoed softly, refracting each drop in endless ripples. Elio took a gentle breath and let it go, feeling the tension ease from his shoulders. In that drowsy moment, Florence seemed not a city of intrigue, but one of sanctuary. The world beyond the gate faded. Only the garden, only the gentle patter of water counted. He sat at the head of the staircase, hands resting on his knees, eyelids hooded. The dawn would arrive soon enough, scattering shadows and awakening the city. Until then, Elio embraced the precious hush, the promise of quiet legacies, and a sense of kinship with all those who had climbed these very steps. The secrets of the Order, for now, could rest. The city's breath, his own, blended and slowed, each heartbeat a silent, intricate vow. Threading through the labyrinth of Firenze's underbelly, Elio moved like a drifting wisp, blending into the thrum of early morning. The alleyways bore patchworks of broken plaster and moss. Laundry sagged from taut lines, clasped by tired wooden pins, the fabric patterns doing a soft dance in the pre-dawn breeze. Here, time shrank and stretched. Even footsteps seemed muted, as if the city cherished every breath in darkness. A loose cobblestone, remembered from childhood, stood half-raised beneath an old merchant's windowsill. Elio touched it with his boot, recalling how little feet had once tiptoed there, dodging an imagined chase. Memories clung to these stones, first lessons in lightness, a parent's hand steadying him, the laughter of sisters running circles through moon-splashed puddles. The feeling of familiarity grounded him more surely than any creed. The city presented itself as a living map, streets and passages branching like tributaries toward the wider Arno. Lanterns winked out, one by one, as dawn's blush filtered between linen clouds. Elio recognized the butcher's sign, iron cleaver and faded paint, and the chipped angel atop a baker's lintel, its features softened by weather and benevolence. He paused near the old bookbinder's shop, where the scent of leather and parchment was thickening already, ready to escape at the door's first creak. Moving lightly along this tapestry of memory, Elio traced the gracious routine of a night unwinding. Fishermen returning quietly to their nets, the soft shush of brooms along steps, the grocer folding empty crates with measured, practiced hands. The air had shifted, cool dew settling along shutter edges, carrying whispers of wheat and salt and rain. Leaning into a quiet recess, Elio let his gaze travel the rooftops. An owl, high on a rafter, swiveled its head and blinked once at the figure below. The city exhaled around them both, its living watchmen trading silent greetings in the grey-blue hush. A soft footfall drew Elio's attention back to the passage. Passing close by was an old friend, Marco, the baker's son. He glanced up, recognition brightening his tired eyes. "Buonanotte, Elio," Marco whispered, voice muffled as though not to break the spell. Elio nodded, a gentle smile softening his features. In that small exchange, history unspooled, sleepless nights spent over games and dreams, secrets shared, loyalties pledged with nothing more than a handshake under a shared sky. Wandering further, Elio reached a bridge arched over a narrow canal. Stone balustrades gleamed wetly, dew glinting in the breaking light. He leaned over, peering into water that reflected a patchwork of windows and the pastel sky beyond. Another letter, this one from his late father, waited at his hip, the ink faded but steadfast. Words about honor, about small kindnesses, more enduring than any blade. Elio ran a thumb along the page's edge, mind adrift in recollections, heart buoyant upon currents of hope. The city, his city, felt gentle beneath his careful gaze, like an old friend drawing its cloak tighter with pride and warmth. As he wandered onward, an elderly woman swept her doorstep, pausing to wave. Elio returned the gesture, feeling Florence itself, in all its layers, embrace him anew. As the sun's light began its golden ascent, the stage was set. Each street corner bore the promise of a new journey. Each shadow whispered a different chapter. Each heartbeat, his and the city's, throbbed with the silent possibility of more stories left to tell. A gentle path unfolded at the city's hem, where rows of olive trees marked the threshold between civilization and wild country. Their silvery leaves caught the first warm rays, trembling in morning's gentle breath. Elio, reassured by the steady comfort of earth underfoot, left the city's tight embrace for Florence's outlying gardens. Here, rosemary and thyme, persistent and fragrant, sprouted along every stone wall. A crumbling archway greeted him, a relic of Roman days, soft with creeping vines and the careless artistry of moss. Beyond, beds of jasmine and wild poppies wove through the air in swirls of color and scent. Insects buzzed, slow and drowsy, as they traced curling petals and busied beneath the shade. In this haven, Elio shared the last tensions of the city. The quiet was tender, interrupted only by birdsong and the distant sheep bells rolling up from the hills. He slowed, hands trailing along the lichen-wrapped surface of the wall. The sensation grounded him, as did the shifting soil beneath each step. Crossing from one sunlit glade to another, Elio listened to the leaf whisper. The gardens, shaped by generations, reflected centuries of care and neglect, giving back aromatics and beauty despite the erosion of years. Memory welled in the air. It was here, in these tangled corridors of green and stone that his uncle had taught him to walk with patience and purpose. They'd moved together, quiet as foxes, breathing in the world's slow wisdom. The echoes of laughter and old advice mingled with the scent of basil, as if time itself had grown fragrant and forgiving. At a break in the wall, a chestnut tree arched low, branches reaching toward a hidden pool. A marble bench, slick with dew, beckoned beneath it. Elio sat, the coolness grounding him, the pattern of the veins on each leaf drawing his gaze into tranquil abstraction. Water trickled from a broken jar, the steady rhythm coaxing a slower heartbeat, inviting him to dwell in the moment's hush. Beyond the pool, the landscape unfurled. Distant fields shone gold and green, blushes of lavender threaded through, cypress guardians rising at measured intervals. The city's hum was softened, a lull in the land's fabric, punctuated only by the call of turtle doves and the lazy splay of sunbeams through woodland gaps. Kneeling by the water, Elio traced the surface, watching a calm ripple spread outward, then fade. His reflection gazed up at him, worn from long nights, yet softened with hope and possibility. In that fragment of mirrored world, he found solace. The assassin's burdens grew lighter, diffused among roots and blossoms, shared with a world older and wiser than any single lineage. He plucked a sprig of rosemary, rolling it gently between thumb and forefinger, breathing deep. It was a reminder that the most enduring legacies were living, growing things, not the sharp legend of a blade in the dark, but quiet roots, tender shoots, and the promise of new branches. The garden's peace anchored Elio, easing the vigilance etched deep in his bones. Bathed in filtered sunlight, the city's protector, humble in posture, heart uplifted, sat quietly among ancestral spirits, beneath the ageless gaze of olive trees. For these moments, time pooled and lingered, as if fate itself had chosen to pause and savor the calm. Elio stayed until the sun climbed higher, carrying with him the hush and hope of the garden wall into the promise of another day. Tucked behind a lane where jasmine spilled over the lintels, the bellmaker's workshop simmered with quiet artistry. Elio approached, lured by the gentle hum, the steady rhythm that felt more heartbeat than hammer. The heavy door, perpetually ajar, yielded with only the faintest protest. Inside, motes of dust spun in beams of gold, thrown across aged benches and rows of silent ironwork. Giacomo, master bellmaker of Florence, sat hunched by his wheel, forever surrounded by the scent of beeswax and brass. His hands, broad and meticulous, smudged with the trace of metal filings, turned a slender chisel over a bell's lip, carving swirls that caught the rising light. The old man looked up, eyes as blue as summer cornflowers, the smile that greeted Elio gentle and sure. "Buongiorno," Giacomo intoned, drawing out the word as if tasting it. His voice, low and kind, filled the small workshop as naturally as breath. Elio bowed, letting a measure of the city's calm find him even here. He reached for a velvet pouch, sliding it across the worn table. Delicate cogs, old coins, a favor owed from a night long ago. Giacomo nodded, accepting the currency not with greed, but with a craftsman's modest pride. The air pulsed softly, thick with the memory of thousands of bells, cathedral chimes and handbells, sheep bells and grand bronze monsters, each tuned for a different moment in the city's life. Elio sat nearby, watching hands and tools in their slow communion, each strike of chisel and rasp like a meditative bell note in the morning hush. Giacomo paused often, wiping sweat from brow, smelling of olive soap and the brass polish kept in neat jars along the windowsill. Sunlight spilled onto the bench, painting rings of gold around the resting bells, awakening patterns chased into the metal by hands long past. Elio touched the largest, initials faint but visible, a date from a Florentine July 80 years ago. These bells were inheritors, not solely of the city's noise, but its memory, reverberating time after time. A cat, pale as cream, nimble as a whisper, tiptoed between the bell frames, brushing Elio's ankles. The assassin stilled, allowing the animal to press a gentle greeting against his shin before it leapt up, perching in the window as a furry observer of two worlds, the busy street and the cloistered calm within. Giacomo chuckled, eyes glittering softly. "You have the soul of a bell, Elio, tied to many, known only by your echo," Giacomo murmured, voice nearly dream-bound. Elio smiled, warmth blooming in his chest. A compliment wrapped in a riddle, as fitting for an artisan as any master's lesson. They sat as time wavered, tradesman and wanderer, each at peace in the other's presence. The tools, oiled and loved, dozed between tasks. The workshop seemed to pause, bell tones sleeping under careful cloth, as if recognizing a kinship in silence. Through a half-open sash, the far-off sound of the city's noontide bells rolled in, a fanfare composed of 1,000 artisans' labors, now circling back to their home. With a final flourish, Giacomo outlined a bell's crest, wings spread wide, carved for an order familiar to Elio. He traced the symbol with his fingertip, an unspoken bond passing between them, then nodded toward the door. The visit was complete, sealed in hush and harmony. Friend and craftsman parted, each carrying the memory of the other's quiet persistence. As Elio stepped into the street, bell sound trailing behind him, he felt lighter, his purpose softened and shaped by the workshop's gentle resonance. A legacy not only of might, but of melody in every silent hour that followed. Florence's grand library stood behind statues and cool colonnades, a guardian of memory and silence. Inside, the hush was tactile, scaffolded by the scent of vellum and the weighty hush of wisdom, stored like precious grain. Elio eased through the carved doors, pulse steadying as the world narrowed. Only parchment, ink, and the slow drift of dust illuminated by leaded windows. Shelves towered, heavy with bound volumes, their spines dappled gold and green, lettering softened by time's gentle caress. Here, time stretched and folded back upon itself. Elio's footfalls made barely a mark, the marble beneath buffed by scholars past and present, friars and visionaries, each in search of his own clarity. He paused, hand tracing the worn wood of the card catalogue, names faint and mysterious. Dicambi, Spadal, Vettori, people with stories hidden in the library's labyrinthine walls. In a nook veiled by hanging curtain, Matteo, the librarian, leafed through a folio nearly as old as the city. Hair silvered, movements dignified. Matteo looked up with clear eyes sparkling behind thick spectacles. A smile flickered. He recognized Elio, not by face, but by posture, by reverence, by the way he breathed in the hush instead of disrupting it. Elio asked softly for the ledger of the old families, documents marked with a cipher known only to a few. Matteo nodded, producing a slender, yellowed book, bound in leather as soft as well-worn linen. He set it on a small desk, its surface reflecting broken rainbows from the colored glass above. Elio sat, opening the ledger with care, feeling the texture of the page, the crisp edge, the gentle resistance of ink sinking through time. Names scrolled in looping calligraphy, each accompanied by a symbol, a dove, a blade, a crescent moon. Elio studied them, fingertips brushing along his own family's seal, pausing for a moment to let memory settle. The hush hummed around him, broken only by the rustle of old leaves. It was here, in the library's embrace, that secrets were buried, legacy distilled into careful lines and quiet declarations. A draft wove through the ribs of the building, stirring the curtains and bringing the faintest hints of lime and dust. Elio traced a coded message along the margin, old family myth, or perhaps instruction. He deciphered a line, heart skipping. In the shadow of the lion, the seed awaits the sun. A riddle, perhaps, or a caution. The city's history was written in mysteries layered like the bricks of the arch above his head. Matteo returned, bearing bread and dried figs, as he often did for those who stayed through the stillest hours. They shared a wordless meal, the silence as nourishing as the food. Through the wide windows, Elio glimpsed the hush of the cloistered garden, another secret haven, light dappling into the cool. After the meal, Elio explored further, deeper aisles where scrolls curled like the city's sleeping cats, illuminated letters dancing in blue and cinnabar. Every breath seemed to inhale time itself, the laughter of apprentices, the vows of silent scribes, old arguments long since forgiven. The library breathed as steadily as the river, old and patient, offering sanctuary to all who sought rest for the mind. When Elio rose to leave, the ledger tucked safely away once more, he bowed to Matteo. The librarian's nod was a benediction, a silent promise that Florence would always keep her secrets close, offering them only to those who pursued wisdom with humble intent. As the cool shadow of the library folded over him and the street's warmth beckoned, Elio felt gently renewed, his place in the tapestry confirmed, his purpose quietly affirmed by the ages that watched from ink and paper and hushed alcove. When the world grew soft with the afternoon's hush, Elio sought solace beyond stone walls. The countryside, threaded with olive groves and tall stands of cypress, beckoned. He walked a dirt track, the city dwindling behind him, the domed silhouette of Florence graying in the gentle haze. Sun dipped low, its golden touch weighing heavy upon wildflowers and the dry scent of summer grass. The road curled past fields of wheat, their golden heads bowed as if in deep prayer. Bees, thick with pollen, droned lazily around heads of wild chervil. Elio's boots, brushed with dust, moved in time with the rhythm of quiet work, the distant plough, the languid bark of a farm dog chasing nothing at all. The world, for this stretch, was simple, colours muted, edges softened, every sound and sight basking in serenity. In a fold of gentle shadow, he found a bench built from the stump of an old olive tree. There he sat, letting time sluice by, as birds trilled unseen in the lattice of tangled branches overhead. A distant shepherd's song bobbed gently, words indistinct, blending with the cicada's humming chorus and the far-off rattle of a cart. Elio closed his eyes, letting the warmth seep through his shoulders, his pulse settling with the whispering air. He remembered his mother's hand teaching him to tie sprigs of lavender, to ward away evil, to ensure dreams sweet as cake. That memory floated close now, blending with the low perfume of farmland, a comfort older than fear, deeper than uncertainty. When a cooling gust rustled the cypress, Elio stood, wandering further from the path, boots pressing soft impressions into the loam. The landscape undulated before him, old farmhouses shrouded in grapevines, their red tile roofs almost lost in the tumble of flowering shrubs, groves where hares darted between trunks, shadows melting with each footfall. He knelt by a patch of wild mint, inhaling the sharp, invigorating aroma. Sunbeams filtered through aged branches, dust motes dancing in their golden nets. Elio, heart unhurried, let himself drift in and out of focus. Sometimes watcher, sometimes wanderer, always part of the silence. Even here, distant from the city's design, the legacy of shadow walked with him. A reminder that quiet could be an act of defiance, that gentleness could be a shield. The air, thick with peace, pressed carefully on all things. Grazing sheep made no sound in the far field. The sky's gradual shading promised the comfort of twilight. Elio followed a lazy stream until it vanished beneath reeds, then settled on a rock deeply warmed by the day's sun. With each passing minute, his thoughts grew softer, the drive for purpose yielding to the hush of field and sky. Night approached on silent wings, painting the cypress tips with indigo and promising rest. Elio, feeling both watcher and watched, rested under the guardian trees, caught in a moment where the world was both vast and cradled, fierce and infinitely kind. He let the evening spill around him, heart and mind held together by the slow, gentle pulse of the land. When twilight folded over Florence's parapets, Elio returned to the city's edge, the boundary where field and square shared a border in gold and blue. The streets glimmered, slick with the reflection of fresh lanterns, as craftsmen set out flame and glass along every corner. He moved slowly, boots ticking a calm rhythm, the shuffle and clap of distant merchants growing ever fainter as the world paused, breath held in luminous anticipation. A gentle hush wrapped the Via della Scala, known for its winding turns and echoing arches. Lanterns bobbed above each doorway, tulip-shaped and amber, swaying with each passerby's step. Shadows curled along garden walls and ducked into stairwells, retreating as Elio passed. He felt the city wind down, each alley unfurling into slower, more peaceful dimensions. He paused beside an apothecary's window, its surface cool and veined with the day's condensation. Shelves marched backward in shadow, herbs stacked in glass, dried roots hanging in bunches, pale candles casting patient pools of illumination. The owner, Signora Loretta, waved through clouded glass, her face half obscured by the soft gleam. She too belonged to the city's legacy of night, listening, helping, bearing witness to the soft shifts of darkness and dawn. Children hurried home, lanterns sending their profiles flickering across time-worn columns. Elio followed quieter ways, through old marketplace squares, abandoned for the night. The stalls empty, but for baskets of stone fruit, the scent of figs and plums grown dense in repose. Every echo of footfall was measured and gentle, as if Florence herself was settling into bed. A bridge spanned the dark canal, its balustrades dusted with petals, fallen from nearby balconies. Elio leaned over, watching the shimmering lantern glow paint long ripples against the water's surface. Each wave caught the shadows of nightbirds darting overhead, wings rustling the air with calm finality. He pulled a letter from his pocket, reading by the gentle flame, a line from Giacomo about lost bells, hope wound tight in brass, and the dignity found in true quiet. The night deepened, a mild breeze circling the lanes, catching loose parchment and drowsy laughter alike. Even the soft clangor of distant bells was muffled, pressed down by the velvet hush. Elio, passing by the old painter's studio, noted the canvases leaning in the moonlit alcove, dreamscapes of the city, color bled and softened, stories told in shadow and brush. Every street, every shuttered window and heavy oak door seemed painted with tranquility. The gentle lull of city night grew palpable, a living thing breathing between stone and star. Elio moved almost in a trance, steps blending with the ceaseless, timeless rhythm of Florence. In that dance of lanterns and long shadows, he remembered all who wandered before him, friends, mentors, anonymous guardians of the hush. When he reached his own courtyard at the edge of the city, the last lantern was snuffed by a watching neighbor, the gesture as old as Florence itself, a sign that the night was safe, the world held gently until morning. Elio stood, letting the silence settle in layers, until even his heartbeat aligned with the measured peace of the sleeping city. Within the Palazzo Vecchio, where great stones held the sun's warmth from noon and secret whispers from centuries past, Elio entered the Hall of Murmurs. Columns spiraled delicately, vast beams overhead carved with stories of saints and rebels. Between marble tiles, the faint echo of footsteps, both his and those long vanished, created a music older than memory. Even the paintings along the upper gallery seemed to hush their color in gathering twilight. Candlelight flickered across gilt frames and the eyes of watching angels. Here, even those engaged in high intrigue chose softer voices. Elio stepped quietly, boots padded on velvet runners, the air carrying the faint scent of beeswax and old parchment. A handful of night clerks lingered over ledgers, heads bent in rapt concentration. Each pen's scratch was gentle, deliberate, accompanied only by the occasional sigh or the turn of delicate paper. Elio's own purpose here was muted, not to eavesdrop, but to listen, to gather the sense of peace that came in knowing the city, its troubles great and small, was, for the moment, stilled. At the far end, beneath a tapestry that showed a battle stilled into stillness, Bianca the steward bowed. Her eyes, sharp and compassionate, reflected lamplight and the fatigue of someone who carried more burdens than she revealed. She and Elio exchanged a quiet, wordless greeting. For her too, the night's hush was oxygen, each minute free from crisis, a treasure. Elio moved toward the high window, the glass mottled and thick, bending starlight into softer patterns that danced along the walls. He pressed fingertips to the cool marble, grounding himself in the solidity and timelessness of stone. Outside, the city lay velvet soft and safe, a mosaic of rooftops and lamp glow. Within, the sighs and slow murmurs of archivists blurred the division between past and present. From a distant table, a scribe hummed a lullaby, voice low as thunder behind a hill. Bianca set down her sheaf of ledgers, stretching hands cramped by careful record-keeping. Elio could almost taste the peace hanging in the air. Sweet, fragile, easily bruised yet persistent. Florence, at rest, guarded itself with silence. He eased into a heavy chair, its wood molded smooth by countless tired officials, and let his mind wander. The gold leaf shone faint atop the council table. Shadows gathered around empty ink pots. The city's lore teemed in drawers and locked boxes, safe for another night. In that hush, Elio felt a profound kinship with rulers and rebels, with those pledged to secrecy and those simply longing for home. Through the grand doors, a servant passed with silver goblets, feet making only the barest sound, almost a dream's footfall. The night outside pressed velvet against leaded panes. Elio inhaled, let his eyes close, the sanctuary of routine filling him with gentle anticipation for the city's next day. In the hall of murmurs, all was soft, all was measured, all was peace. He left the great room as quietly as he entered, heart calmed, faith restored by the unbroken span of silence. Beneath the arches, Florence slumbered on, her keepers at their posts, her history settling into gentle rhythm, her legacy held close by night's encompassing embrace. At midnight, silvered moonlight powdering rooftops and bridges, Elio approached the Ponte Vecchio, drawn by the river's unhurried call. The Arno flowed broad and dark, mirroring the scattered stars, carrying time and light beneath Florentine arches. Jewelers' shops stood shuttered and silent. Pigeons nested high among the beams, drowsing with the rhythm of flowing water. He leaned against the parapet, stone cool beneath his hands. The world around him stilled to slow, precious breaths. Every night was different. Tonight, a hush hovered, thick and promising, the kind of silence that seemed woven by careful hands. River scents mingled, damp stone, lily, the faint tang of distant wood smoke. Elio let his lids drift, mind traveling beyond walls, following ancestral footsteps across the night. The bridge, like the city itself, was a place of passage, its arches both shelter and threshold. On nights such as this, he felt all time pressed together, the constellations shifting overhead, secrets and confessions whispered where river and air intertwined. Nearby, a painter named Rosella swept the flagstones, her own ritual of night, hair bundled, skirts dusted with pigment. She dipped a rag in the river's edge, wringing out the colors wrought by candle and starlight. Rosella spoke as Elio neared, her voice warm and fragrant with fatigue. You return often, silent as the shadow you are. Her smile, shaped by trust and sleepless nights, needed no response. Together, they shared the peace afforded by the dark, two solitary souls guarding the hush. From the high parapet, the world looked polished and hopeful. The city lights, few but bright, splintered along the water's skin. Elio retrieved a coin, feeling the ridges, old, worn with the touch of unknown hands, then flicked it in a slow arc. It vanished below, swallowed gently by the Arno, a silent vow made to no one and everyone. The city will endure, and those who protect it will remain unseen, unfailing, faithful. Rosella finished her slow sweep, collecting her basket and piecing the scraps of day together. a patchwork of effort and memory. She nodded to Elio, her night's work concluded, and drifted away, her footsteps wrapped in soft echoes. He stood alone, content in the nearness of water and sky. A cool wind danced over the bridge, pulling thin ribbons of mist from the riverbank. Elio closed his eyes, breathing in the cool and the scent of jasmine, winding each memory into the next. In this quiet hour, the world seemed generous, promising safety and a gentle tomorrow. He lingered until the church bells in the square tolled once, then faded, the music drifting far beyond the rooftops. Elio turned, steps slow and anchored, heart filled with silent gratitude. The promise of his legacy shimmered with each soft echo on ancient stone, guiding him forward, even as the city, shrouded in silver and silence, watched and welcomed him home. Near the city's edge, where the walls grew perfumed with honeysuckle and moss, Elio found solace in a quiet chamber, hidden above a tangle of fig trees. Once a scriptorium, now a place for rest and secret reflection, it overlooked the rooftops, bound on three sides by trailing vine and ancient brick. Here, the world pressed soft and slow, and shadow was a gentle companion. He climbed the winding stair, palm brushing the cool banister, savoring the slow ascent. The air inside was stitched with the sweet aroma of dried leaves. Bay, olive, linden, hung carefully in bundles overhead. Glass mosaics in the window scattered moonbeams in a quiet puzzle of color across the tiled floor. Elio paused just inside, savoring the hush that clung to the chamber, the tranquil hush cultivated by years of solitude. A small fire crackled in a tiled hearth, its presence restrained, sending waves of warmth along the low wooden ceiling. Beside it, a table waited, well worn, with inkwells and parchment pressed flat by stones gathered from the Arno's banks. Elio traced a curl of script on a waiting page, listening to the wind rattle dry fig leaves outside. In this chamber, memories felt lighter. Here, he revisited advice from letters gone crisp with age, their words offering gentle instruction, stories from lives as intertwined as vine and wall. Each missive written in the uncertain dark, each signature a bulwark against loneliness. Elio leaned into an old chair, letting fatigue fall from his frame, limbs growing heavy in the careful glow. Birdsong from the garden below threaded in, hush layered on hush. The chamber became a cocoon, its air spun with dust and time, its wooden slats creaking only as they settled for the night. Elio closed his eyes, senses unfurling. The rough scrape of linen, the faint snap of fire, the sleepy pulse of his own breath. The room seemed to fold around him, each detail vivid yet blurring at the edges, inviting him to drift. He thought of those who built the chamber, craftsmen's hands shaping each lintel, visionaries imagining a place of light and quiet. Their dreams hung in the air, secret and abiding. The world outside eased toward dawn, shadows dissolving slowly, the air rich with promise. Within the chamber's mosaic filtered moonlight, Elio released the last tethers of the day, his heartbeat muffled into the thick woven rug, his body sinking into softness, a gentle surrender. Leaves shifted in their wilted garlands, hushing each other, music for dreams. In the heart of old Florence, Elio found a legacy that required neither blade nor bravado, a steady light in the hush, a promise kept in silence, a peace so complete it could last through generations of watchful night. When dawn slowly bloomed beyond the distant hills, painting window panes with rose and honey, Elio remained at peace in his chamber. The city outside stretched and yawned, Florence's rooftops awakening beneath a new-washed sky. Yet within the scriptorium, shadows faded gently, soothed away by soft morning light. The world paused, as if holding its breath, honoring the end of one night and the hopeful hush before the day's first bells. Elio stirred, his body resting in welcome stillness, limbs released from careful tension. The warmth of hearth and the memory of quiet adventures wrapped him, as gentle as a grandmother's embrace. A breeze drifted through the open window, carrying the subtle tang of sweet herbs, the whisper of lavender fields, the hush of gardens and alleys he'd wandered in gentle reverie. He rose slowly, every motion unhurried, as though time itself had learned patience from the long night. The lingering scent of dried fig leaves clung to his tunic, a memory of peaceful hours behind cloistered stone. Each breath felt deliberate and free, a gift given by the city and received in quiet gratitude. Below, Florence shimmered, a living tapestry woven by sunlight and the unseen threads of countless generations. The bells chimed, soft and far away, not summoning action or urgency, but marking the rhythm of a world perfectly content to begin slowly. Outside, an old woman tended her window boxes, her gentle humming floating up with the first light. The market square opened languidly, flowers and fruit setting out for another sunrise. In that tranquil space, Elio allowed wakefulness to mingle with dream. The prowling urgency of night dissolved, replaced by a legacy of hush, belonging, and the invisible fellowship of those who move with care through shadow and day alike. He dressed, every gesture a recognition of continuity, a sleeve straightened, a blade placed quietly in a drawer, not needed where the morning was so soft. The city's morning chorus built, layer upon layer, pigeons settling on the cathedral, the river's hush, clergy chanting behind stained glass, children's laughter rising with the scatter of breadcrumbs on stone. Every thread connected back to the quiet promise of the order, to protect not with violence, but with watchfulness, mercy, and the gentle labor of guardianship. As the chamber filled with day, Elio let himself drift once more, mind unwinding, muscles yielding to rest deeper than any sleep before. The beating heart of Florence, lulled by night's passing and day's patient arrival, mirrored his own. Every legend, every whispered story, every legacy of shadow and light had brought him here, not as hero, but as witness to the city's quiet beauty. With the last sigh before sleep, eyelids drifting closed, Elio let the peace of Florence fold around him, soft, unending, and warm as dawn's first gentle glow. Here, at rest where shadows end, the story takes its breath, and everything is exactly as it should be.